I'm Rachel, a 45-year-old dentist with my own successful practice. 10 years ago, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I married James, a wonderful man who came with a 12-year-old daughter from his previous marriage. I had a spacious apartment with several bedrooms, so it made sense for them to move in with me after the wedding. Emma, my stepdaughter, made it crystal clear from day one that she wasn't happy about her father's choice. "Dad," she'd say right in front of me, "could you tell your wife I'm not hungry?" The way she emphasized "your wife" felt like a slap in the face every time. The first few months were a battlefield. Emma would slam doors, ignore my presence, and throw tantrums that would make the neighbors' heads turn. But I refused to take the bait. Instead of punishing her or fighting back, I chose a different approach. One evening, after another one of her outbursts, I knocked on her door. "Emma, I'm not here to replace your mother," I said through the door. "I'm just hoping we can find our own way to get along." She didn't respond that night, but something changed after that conversation. I started treating her like an adult, not a child who needed to be controlled or corrected. When she'd make snide comments, I'd respond calmly and rationally. If she wanted to discuss something with her father instead of me, that was fine too. "Dad," she said one morning, "Rachel's pancakes actually smell good." It was the first time she'd acknowledged anything positive about me, even if it wasn't said to my face. 2 years after the wedding, things started to shift. The change wasn't dramatic, more like ice slowly melting. Emma began addressing me directly, first with small requests, then with actual conversations. I made sure to include her in everything: family vacations, weekend outings, even silly movie nights at home. "Rachel," she asked one day, using my name for the first time without spite, "can I come with you and Dad to the beach house this summer?" I noticed the biggest improvement came after Emma's mother, Linda, remarried. With her own personal life to focus on, Linda stopped making those little comments that would set Emma against me. The phone calls that used to end with Emma in tears became shorter and more casual. "Mom's different now," Emma told me one evening while we were cooking dinner together. "She seems happier." I guess everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, right? Those words felt like a peace offering, and I accepted them gratefully. As I watched her stir the pasta sauce, a recipe we'd learned together, I realized we were finally becoming something close to a real family. When Emma got accepted to college, I didn't hesitate to help with the tuition. James and I had discussed it beforehand, and it felt like the natural thing to do. After all, we'd come so far from those early days of slammed doors and silent treatments. The night before she left for college, we sat on her bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes and piles of clothes. I had something important to tell her. "Listen, Emma," I said, "my brother David runs that marketing firm downtown. When you graduate, if you're interested, I'll help you get a position there. It's a great place to start your career." She hugged me then, a real, tight hug, not one of those awkward side hugs we used to share. "Really? That would be amazing, Rachel." "Thank you." During her college years, we didn't see her as often as we'd like. She'd come home for holidays and occasional weekends, but that's normal for college students. When she did visit, I made sure to cook all her favorites: my lasagna that she'd finally admitted was better than her mom's, those chocolate chip cookies she used to sneak from the kitchen when she thought I wasn't looking. "How's the business management program?" I'd ask over dinner. "Still enjoying Professor Turner's class?" She'd light up talking about her studies, her internships, her plans for the future. Sometimes, mid-conversation, she'd mention visiting her mom. "I stopped by Mom's place last weekend," she'd say, then quickly add, "Oh, but you should see the project I'm working on for my marketing class." I never pushed when she changed the subject like that. Why would I? It was perfectly natural for her to spend time with her mother. Even James agreed. We'd settled into a comfortable rhythm during these visits. Emma would tell us about her classes, her friends, her part-time job at the campus coffee shop. I'd cook her favorite meals, and we'd all sit around the dining table like we used to, sharing stories and laughing together. You know, Emma said during one of these dinners, my roommate can't believe how lucky I am to have such a cool stepmom. She's always complaining about hers. Those words meant more to me than she probably realized. After all those years of struggle, hearing her casually refer to me as cool felt like winning an Olympic medal. James squeezed my hand under the table, and I knew he was thinking the same thing. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, Emma lingered in the kitchen longer than usual. "Rachel," she said, fidgeting with a dish towel. "Thanks for everything. Not just the college thing, but, you know. Everything. Time has a way of sneaking up on you. One day you're helping your stepdaughter move into her college dorm, and the next thing you know, she's wearing a cap and gown, receiving her diploma." As I watched Emma walk across the stage, I couldn't help but think about the apartment key sitting in my purse, waiting to change her life. The apartment had been my grandmother's. It wasn't huge, a cozy 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it was perfect for a young professional starting out. I'd been renting it out for years, but now I had different plans for it. Emma was chatting animatedly from the back seat about her friends' post-graduation plans. "Sarah's moving to Chicago, and Mike got that job in Boston. It's weird how everyone's spreading out across the country." I caught James's eye and smiled. She had no idea she wouldn't have to go anywhere. When we got home, I could barely contain my excitement. I'd asked the last tenants to move out a month ago and had the whole place professionally cleaned and painted. Everything was ready. "Emma," I said as we settled in our living room, "I have something for you." My hands were shaking slightly as I pulled out the keys, attached to a small silver keychain with her initials. "What's this?" she asked, taking the keys with a puzzled expression. "An apartment," I said simply. "My grandmother's old place. It's yours now." The room went completely silent. Emma stared at the keys in her hand, then at me, then back at the keys. James's mouth had dropped open. Are you serious?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Completely serious. You'll need your own place now that you're starting your career. Maybe even a family someday." I pulled out my phone to show her pictures. "It's on Cedar Street, number 542. Everything's ready for you to move in whenever you want." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She launched herself at me, wrapping her arms around my neck like she used to do when she was younger. "Rachel, I can't believe this is, thank you." James was next, pulling me into a tight embrace. "I love you," he whispered in my ear. "You're amazing, you know that?" Emma was already grabbing her coat. "Can I go see it? Right now?" I laughed and gave her the address again, making sure she had it right. "Of course. The keys work on both the building entrance and apartment door. Take your time exploring." "I think I'll stay there tonight," she said excitedly. "Is that okay? I want to get a feel for my new home." After she left, James and I curled up on the couch together. The house felt oddly quiet without her bustling energy. "Just think," I said, resting my head on his shoulder, "someday she'll meet someone special, and they'll make that place their first home together." James kissed the top of my head. "And then we'll be grandparents, and you'll spoil our grandkids just like you've spoiled our daughter." Our daughter. The words made my heart swell. After all these years, all the struggles and tears and slow untrust, she really had become my daughter in every way that mattered. I was enjoying my day off, still basking in the warmth of yesterday's happiness, when my front door burst open with a bang that made me jump. Linda, Emma's mother, stormed in like a hurricane. "How dare you?" she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "Who do you think you are?" I stood up from the couch, my heart pounding. "Linda? What's wrong? Don't play innocent with me. Emma told me about your little gift." "An entire apartment? Really?" She was practically spitting the words. "You think you can buy my daughter's love?" The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "That's not what this is about at all," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I inherited that apartment from my grandmother." "Oh, how convenient," Linda cut me off, pacing our living room like a caged animal. You just happened to have a spare apartment lying around? And you just had to give it to my daughter, knowing full well I could never match such an expensive gift. Linda, please, I attempted to explain, my hands raised in a placating gesture. I love Emma. She's like a daughter to me. I just wanted to help her start her adult life. Love her? Linda's laugh was harsh and bitter. You've been trying to replace me since day one. First with the fancy vacations, then paying for her college, and now this? She stepped toward me, her hand raised, and I instinctively stepped back. Before anything could happen, James appeared from nowhere, grabbing Linda's wrist. That's enough, his voice was firm. You need to leave. Now. Linda yanked her arm free, her eyes blazing with hatred. This isn't over, Rachel. You think you're so generous, so perfect? Well, you can't buy a mother's love. Emma will always be my daughter, not yours. No matter how many apartments you throw at her. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. I stood frozen in place, my whole body trembling. James tried to pull me into an awkward embrace, but I couldn't relax into it. My mind was racing, replaying Linda's words over and over. Had I really been trying to buy Emma's love all these years? Was that what everyone thought? She's wrong, James said softly, but something in his voice sounded uncertain. You know she's wrong, right? I nodded mechanically, but inside, I felt like my whole world had started to crumble. 10 years of building trust, of careful steps forward and occasional steps back, all reduced to accusations of bribery and manipulation. Emma showed up the next morning looking like she hadn't slept. She shuffled into the kitchen while I was making coffee, barely meeting my eyes. Emma, about yesterday. I started. I don't want to talk about it, she cut me off, her voice flat. Without another word, she turned and disappeared into her old room. I stood in the kitchen, coffee pot in hand, listening to her door click shut. The sound felt final somehow, like a judge's gavel coming down. Throughout the day, I could hear her fingers tapping against her phone screen, probably texting someone, her mother, I assumed. When Emma finally emerged for dinner, the silence had morphed into something worse. She pushed her food around her plate, phone still clutched in her left hand, before suddenly announcing, I'm throwing a graduation party at La Maison next weekend. Relief flooded through me. Finally, a chance to move past this awkwardness. That's wonderful. I can help you plan everything. La Maison is expensive, but we can. No, Emma interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. My real mother is paying for it. The way she emphasized real made my stomach clench. Not just mom or mother, but real mother, like she was deliberately drawing a line between us. Later that night, I told James about the conversation. The way she said real mother, it was like she was trying to hurt me. You're reading too much into this, he said, patting my hand absently. She's just stressed about everything that's happened. You know how Linda can get. But I wasn't reading too much into it. I couldn't be. Over the next few days, I'd come home from work to hear Emma's voice drifting down the hallway, cheerfully calling friends and relatives. The party's going to be amazing, she'd gush. Mom's rented out the whole restaurant. Yes, the fancy French one downtown. I'd stand in the hallway, key still in hand, listening to her make plan after plan. She called her cousins, her college friends, even some of our neighbors. But day after day, no invitation came my way. Each time I heard her on the phone, each new person she invited, it felt like another brick in a wall being built between us. A wall I hadn't seen coming until it was almost complete. One evening, I overheard her talking to someone, probably her mother, in hushed, excited tones. Everything's arranged. The menu, the decorations, the guest list. She laughed at something the other person said, and the sound twisted in my chest like a knife. It was the same laugh she used to share with me when we'd stay up late watching movies or cooking together. After 2 days of this torture, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I found her in the kitchen the next morning, drinking coffee and scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't been systematically inviting everyone except me to her graduation party. Emma, my voice came out shakier than I intended. Can we talk about the party? I haven't heard any details yet. What time should we? You're not coming, she cut me off, still not looking up. What? The word came out as barely more than a whisper. Now she did look up, and I barely recognized her expression. Her eyes were cold, her mouth twisted in a smile I'd never seen before. You heard me. You're not invited. I gripped the kitchen counter to steady myself. Emma, what's going on? Is this because of what happened with your mother the other day? My real mother, she corrected, emphasizing each word like a weapon. And yes, she doesn't want you there. Neither do I. I don't understand. I pulled out a chair and sat down, my legs suddenly weak. If this is about the apartment. She let out a harsh laugh that made me flinch. Oh, I'm keeping the apartment. I mean, who turns down a free place to live? Consider it payment for all the years I had to put up with you and your perfect stepmom act. The room seemed to spin. Put up with me? Emma, what are you talking about? Have you been suffering all this time? God, you really don't get it, do you? She stood up, pushing her chair back with a screech against the tile floor. I never loved you. You were just the woman who made sure my parents could never get back together. If you hadn't shown up, they might have worked things out. We could have been a real family again. Each word felt like a physical blow. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up helping her with homework, all the times I'd held her while she cried over boys, all the mother-daughter moments I thought we'd shared. Real family? My voice cracked. What do you think we've been for the past 10 years? All those vacations we took together, the college tuition. Yeah, throwing money around. That's your solution to everything, isn't it? She sneered, and the expression looked so foreign on her face. Fancy trips, expensive gifts, paying for college, and now an apartment. Did you think you could just buy yourself a daughter? That's not what I was trying to do. I could feel tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. I did those things because I love you. Because I thought we were family. Family? She laughed again, that horrible, mocking laugh. My mom is my family. Dad is my family. You? You're just the woman who came along and ruined everything. And now you're trying to buy my love with an apartment? I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those years, was any of it real? The party's on Sunday at 7, she said instead of answering, walking toward her room. Don't show up. You're not welcome. The door slammed so hard the photos on the wall rattled, photos of us at her high school graduation, at Christmas, at the beach. Moments I'd treasured that now felt like elaborate lies. The coffee in the mug had long gone cold, but I couldn't bring myself to dump it out. It felt like dumping out the last 10 years of my life. That evening, I waited for James to come home, my hands shaking as I rehearsed how I'd tell him about Emma's cruel words. When he finally walked through the door, the story spilled out between sobs I couldn't control. I'll talk to her, he said immediately, heading straight to Emma's room without even taking off his coat. I sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, waiting. The minutes crawled by like hours. When James finally emerged, I looked up expectantly, hoping for support, understanding, anything that would make this nightmare better. Rachel. He wouldn't meet my eyes, and my heart sank before he even finished speaking. Emma has some valid points. Maybe it would be better if you didn't come to the party. The world stopped spinning. In that moment, 10 years of marriage crystallized into perfect clarity. I had been living a lie all along. You're still going? My voice sounded distant, unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. Of course, she's my daughter. He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like I was stupid for even asking. I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Over the next few days, I played the perfect understanding wife. I smiled at breakfast. I made their favorite dinners. I pretended everything was fine while my heart shattered into smaller pieces with each passing hour. Sunday evening, I watched them leave for the party. The moment their car disappeared around the corner, I sprang into action. The locksmith was already waiting at my grandmother's apartment. He worked quickly and efficiently, not asking questions about why I needed the locks changed so urgently. Within 20 minutes, I had new keys in my hand. Back home, I moved like a woman possessed. James's clothes went into suitcases, sorted by season and type, just like I'd always done when we packed for vacations. Everything stacked neatly by the door, ready for his departure from my life. Then I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, my favorite comfort drink since childhood. The familiar, soothing aroma filled the kitchen as I sat down on the couch and opened Instagram. Emma had already posted photos from the party. There she was, sandwiched between James and Linda, all three of them beaming at the camera like they didn't have a care in the world. The caption read, "So blessed to be celebrating with the people who truly matter." At midnight, I heard James's key in the lock. His footsteps in the hallway, then silence as he reached the bedroom and saw the suitcases. "Rachel?" His voice was sharp with confusion. "What's all this?" I took another sip of my now cold tea. "You need to find somewhere else to live." He laughed, actually laughed, like this was all some silly joke. "Don't you think you're overreacting? It was just a party." "Just a party?" I set down my cup carefully, the porcelain making a soft clink against the coffee table. "My husband and stepdaughter excluded me from a family celebration." "You took her side when she said she never loved me. You watched her treat me like garbage and did nothing." My voice was steady now, certain. "Expect divorce papers this week." The laughter died in his throat. "Now, wait a minute. We can fix this." "Fix what?" I interrupted. "The fact that you never loved me? That I was just a convenient replacement mother for your daughter? That you stood by while she threw 10 years of love back in my face?" Before James could respond, the front door burst open with a bang. Emma stormed in, her party dress wrinkled, mascara streaking down her face. "What did you do?" she screamed. "Why can't I get into my apartment?" I took another sip of chamomile tea, my hand steady. "Your apartment? Oh, you mean my grandmother's apartment? You gave it to me. You can't just take it back." "Actually, I can." I set down my cup. "Since you believe it was just a bribe to buy your love, I'm taking it back." "I don't bribe people." "You can't do this," her voice cracked with rage and panic. "I can and I did. And while we're at it, I called my brother this morning. Don't bother applying for that position at his company. I told him you're no longer part of the family." Emma's face crumpled. "That's so cruel. How can you do this to me?" "Cruel?" I stood up slowly. "Cruel is pretending to love someone for 10 years. Cruel is taking everything they give you while secretly despising them. Cruel is excluding them from your graduation party and posting photos about your real family." James finally found his voice. "Rachel, you're being unreasonable." "No, I'm being clear for the first time in 10 years, I turned to face them both. This is my apartment. You are no longer my family. I want you both out. Now." Emma burst into tears and ran to her room. I could hear she slamming drawers and closet doors, crying and cursing as she packed. James kept trying to talk to me, but I turned up the kitchen faucet to drown out his voice. 30 minutes later, Emma emerged with her suitcases. Her face was red with fury. "You're a horrible person," she spat. "You're worse than I ever thought. I hate you." "Goodbye, Emma," I said calmly. "James, don't forget your golf clubs in the garage." They left, the door closing behind them with a final click. I stood in my silent apartment, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in days. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Linda called 17 times before switching to texts, each one more hostile than the last. "How dare you take back the apartment? You manipulative witch. I'll sue you for this." James's messages were different, pleading, apologetic. Please talk to me. We can work this out. I'm sorry about everything. Emma tried both approaches. I didn't mean what I said. You're ruining my life. Please, Rachel, I'm sorry. I blocked them all without responding. 10 years of manipulation and lies had finally become clear. They'd used me, for my money, my apartment, my connections. Well, no more. The divorce proceedings were quick, thanks to our prenuptial agreement. James tried to claim half of my assets, arguing about his contributions to the marriage. His lawyer's face fell when mine produced the prenup James had signed a decade ago. Through mutual friends, I heard they'd found a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Emma was struggling to find work, without my brother's help. James had to sell his golf club membership to afford the security deposit. The apartment feels bigger now, emptier. But it's mine. Every morning, I make my chamomile tea and sit by the window, watching the sunrise. No more cooking elaborate meals for ungrateful family members. No more paying for someone else's dreams. No more pretending.
Why are you here? Despite our completely cold marriage, my husband Steve said he wanted to celebrate my birthday at a fancy restaurant. I suspected he was up to something, and indeed, his mistress was also waiting at the restaurant. I wanted to celebrate your birthday too. This is a birthday present from both me and your husband. The present was a divorce paper. What a tasteless surprise. But in return, I handed something over that would bring Steve and his mistress down. Instead, I present this to you. My final gift to you. Seeing this, the two of them ended up pleading for forgiveness in a pitiful manner. My name is Alyssa. I used to work as an office worker at a corporation, but due to Steve's wishes, I am now a full-time housewife. Steve and I got to know each other as we started at the same company and shared common interests. He was good at talking and sweet-talking. I fell for him and actively pursued a relationship, which led to marriage. Vulnerable to my feelings for him, I tended to comply with his demands from the beginning of our relationship, thinking it would keep our relationship harmonious. Steve often made aggressive demands, taking advantage of my attitude. Highly regarded at his company and on a career track, Steve focused on his work and insisted that I quit my job to become a housewife after we married. But I like my current job, and I've just been entrusted with a project. No matter how hard a woman like Alyssa tries, she can't outperform me, right? It's better for you to support me by taking care of the home now. I thought, is that so? Although I still wanted to continue working, I convinced myself that maybe Steve was right, and ultimately quit my job when we got married. Even after marriage, Steve continued to assert his beliefs. Hey, I was thinking of visiting my parents next holiday. Steve, maybe you could. You know I hate such bothersome stuff. I'm tired from work, so I want time for myself on holidays. You should just go alone since they are your parents. Steve never met my parents again after our wedding greetings and the ceremony. While I occasionally visited my parents, Steve never accompanied me. I rationalized that he was just not good at handling personal relationships. But it still saddened me to see my beloved parents treated dismissively. Our marriage continued like this for 10 years. How was your day? I was just making your favorite dish. I greeted Steve cheerily as he returned from work. However, upon seeing my face, he sighed annoyedly. Ah. I'm tired of that. It feels like you're holding it over me. I don't need dinner today. I just came home to sleep, and I have to get up early tomorrow, so leave me alone. He coldly stated and quickly retreated to his room, leaving me staring miserably at his back. I thought, today too, he didn't eat it. Whether it's because he's busy with work or not. Steve often comes home late these days. And I try to make him comfortable at home by cooking his favorite foods daily. However, Steve usually eats out, rarely having the meals I prepare. Still, as a housewife, I continued to cook and waited for his return. I thought, I wonder when we started drifting apart like this. Tears welled up in my eyes as I wrapped the uneaten food and placed it in the refrigerator. Initially, our marriage was going well, but as Steve rose to a managerial position, the stress seemed to increase, and he became less communicative at home. I kept trying to talk to him, but he only got more irritable, making all my efforts futile. I hoped time would heal things, but as days passed, the gap between us deepened. I kept telling myself that his aggression was due to his busy schedule. All I could do was to wait quietly at home, not provoking Steve's temper. However, an incident that trampled on my feelings happened one day. It all started when Steve came home and was in the shower, and our home phone rang. Hello? Hello, is this the director's home? It seems he left his smartphone at the office. The caller sounded like a young woman. Oh, well, thank you for calling. He's currently in the shower, but I'll let him know once he's out. Is that so? Well, then I'll bring it over. I know where he lives. No, that won't be necessary. I'll have him pick it up later, please don't worry. I have time, so it's okay. I'll head over now. Despite being pushy, she ended up bringing Steve's smartphone. Steve, your colleague said she's bringing over a smartphone you forgot. It was a young woman's voice. So, I see. Okay. I told this to Steve as he got out of the shower, and he visibly looked uneasy. About an hour after the call, our doorbell rang. When I answered, I heard the voice of the woman from the phone. I opened the door, and there stood a woman in her early 20s. Nice to meet you. Are you the wife? Is Steve here? With a look that men might like, miniskirt and heavy makeup, she spoke in a coquettish tone as she peeked into our house. I intuitively disliked her vibe. Megan, sorry to trouble you. Steve passed by me to stand in front of the woman he called Megan, exchanging casual conversation as he took the smartphone. However, their overly friendly demeanor made me feel uncomfortable. Sorry for the late hour, I'll be leaving now. See you, Steve. With that, she left. The door slammed shut, leaving only the strong scent of her branded perfume behind. You seem to get along well with your colleague. What's with that all of a sudden? Megan is just a colleague. Yet Megan calls you Steve so casually. Despite being addressed as director over the phone, the woman had deliberately called him Steve in my hearing when she visited. She's just very friendly. She calls everyone by their first names, not just me. Friendly, huh? Ah, so that's why she knew our house. Even though she's never been invited to a boss's home. She came without hesitation, she must have a good memory. What are you trying to say? My probing words finally made my husband Steve snap. I normally don't confront him like this. But I had a woman's intuition that he might have a mistress. I hadn't investigated her yet, but I was sure that Megan from earlier was the one. So I pressed the issue with passion. You always said you were late from work, but could there be another reason? You might think you've kept it hidden from me, but it's obvious. The times when Steve was busy at work and became cold towards me matched up. It could only mean one thing, infidelity. Why don't you just admit it? shut up, it was just a fling. So, you admit to cheating? I was stressed from work, and when she invited me, I just lost it. It was just dinner, nothing physical. That doesn't count as cheating, does it? Steve finally admitted to cheating after my persistent questioning. But he insisted that it wasn't a physical relationship. However, judging by their demeanor, it couldn't have been just platonic. But at the moment, I had no evidence to pursue it further. So what if I cheated? What are you going to do about it? Divorce? There's no way you, a housewife with a career gap, can find a job if you leave me. You'd struggle financially without me. Steve sneered at me, ignoring his own actions. As he said, I hadn't worked for 10 years. It would likely be tough to find a job if I tried. Knowing this, Steve was confident that I wouldn't dare file for divorce even if he cheated. You rely on me for support, and you have the nerve. There's no reason for you to bash me just because I talked to a younger girl. I've had enough. I ended the conversation, disgusted by Steve's lack of apology. Maybe you're jealous of a beautiful young woman. I don't know, but a housewife should just quietly obey me. Steve sneered and spat out those words before returning to the living room. I had tried to ignore it to protect my own feelings. But it was clear he was looking down on me. There was no trust left between us. Despite how much I had loved him, this incident cooled my feelings rapidly. I thought, I won't let him get away with this. I'll make sure he apologizes. Secretly, I vowed to take revenge on my husband, Steve. I thought it was time to use a power that Steve didn't know I had. After that, I continued on with my daily routines superficially. Steve's homecomings remained unapologetically late. And the only thing I changed was stopping to cook meals for him. Once when he came home and asked where's dinner, I told him I had no interest in cooking for someone whose return time was unpredictable. He angrily declared he'd never eat my cooking again. As our marriage continued to grow colder, one day, as my birthday approached, Steve surprisingly initiated a conversation. Alyssa, I've made a reservation for your birthday at a restaurant. It had been years since he'd celebrated my birthday. Wondering what sudden change of wind had prompted this, I didn't press further but thanked him, looking forward to it. I wasn't sure what he was planning. However, from his attitude and demeanor, it was clear he wasn't genuinely interested in celebrating my birthday. I decided it might be wise to prepare something in advance. I planned to deliver a major blow to both Steve and his mistress Megan. On my birthday, Steve truly had made a reservation at the restaurant. It was a high-end establishment often featured in magazines. We were led inside by the staff, and Steve and I headed to our table. However, an unbelievable person was already sitting there. Why are you here? Oh, ma'am, long time no see. I wanted to celebrate your birthday too, I asked Steve. Just like when she had visited our home. There she was with her revealing outfit and heavy makeup. It was Steve's mistress, Megan. What is this about? I questioned Steve, who was sitting next to me. But he feigned ignorance and didn't answer. Oh, come on, sit down, you'll understand everything once you see this, Megan said, thrusting a piece of paper in front of me. This is happy birthday from me and Steve. It was a divorce form, already signed in the husband's section by Steve. I'm tired of our life together. I want a divorce. What a tasteless surprise. You went through the trouble of reserving a restaurant. You could have just handed me the divorce papers normally. But you chose to mock me to the end, didn't you? Oh, come on, we just wanted to have a nice meal and then part ways cleanly. Megan smirked malevolently, watching my reaction. This distasteful setup was likely her idea. It's like a little joke, isn't it? Were you that shocked? Did you really think I'd celebrate your birthday for real? I'm not so naive. I suspected you were up to something. But I didn't expect such an incomprehensible surprise. Oh, are you making excuses now? That's right, I lost. I'll give you the boring man who enjoys ridiculing others with his mistress. I'll submit this myself. I picked up the divorce form from the table. Instead, I'm giving you this as a present. My final gift to you, read it carefully. I placed a letter I had prepared in advance on the table and turned to leave the restaurant. Behind me, I could hear their contemptuous laughter. Without taking my meal, I left the restaurant, ignoring the puzzled waiter. With the divorce form in hand, I quickly headed to a specific place. I knew that divorce forms could be submitted 24 hours a day. Fortunately, the office was nearby. I started walking to submit the divorce form immediately. I wanted to sever ties with that man as soon as possible. As I thought, the office was still open. Finally, I would be free from that man. As I was about to enter, I heard someone loudly calling my name. Hey! Alyssa! Wait, please wait. At the entrance of the office, Steve, having noticed me, called out to stop me. He must have rushed here because he was panting heavily. Megan, his mistress, was also there. Her hair a mess compared to how it looked at the restaurant. Likely because she too had run after me. What do you want? I knew they had chased after me because of the letter I had left. But I asked innocently, pretending not to understand. The divorce was a joke. The affair, all of it, was just a story to get your attention. It was a surprise, you know? We've been in a rut, haven't we? What a desperate excuse. It's true. I was just helping the director with a surprise. Ignoring their frantic explanations, I continued towards the entrance of the city office. They were only changing their tune because they had read that letter. In the letter, I had revealed that the president of a major company crucial to Steve's employer was actually my father. Steve knew that my father ran a company. But because he had not met him since our wedding, and our family name was common, he never realized that the president of the client company was my dad. Knowing the truth, Steve must have turned pale because with my father's influence, firing both of them would be easy. We can still fix this. I want you to come back. Please, I'm begging you. Steve was on his knees in front of the busy city office, not caring who saw. Megan, too, knelt down beside him. Clearly, they were afraid of losing their jobs. Oh, it's too late for that. Sorry to have you make such a pathetic show, but I've already filed the divorce papers. You were about to go into the office building. Stop lying. Sorry to have raised your hopes, but I actually left my bag at the counter. I was just going back to get it. We're already strangers. With that, I showed them my hands, emphasizing that I didn't have my bag. They must have thought they caught up with me before I could file the papers. But I had already submitted the divorce application. So, damn. You'll regret divorcing a husband who didn't cheat. Is that all? Just took a surprise too seriously? Can't you take a joke? Despite their rush to prevent me from filing the divorce papers, their efforts were in vain. And they started to hurl insults in frustration again. Still pretending to be innocent, are you? I've already collected enough evidence to prove your affair. Evidence? Yes. You thought I would tolerate the cheating because I'd struggle financially after a divorce. But I'm not the kind of woman to stay silent after being ridiculed. I had hired a detective agency to monitor them, and indeed, they were frequently meeting in secret. There were photos of them entering a hotel together, cozy and intimate. They could no longer claim there was no physical relationship. No matter how much you deny the affair, I have all the evidence. From now on, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Look forward to paying a substantial amount in damages. As I smiled and delivered these words, the two were left speechless. No. Don't leave me. I just gave in to temptation. You are the one for me. Then, Steve got up and clung to me, sobbing. Stop it, you're pathetic. Saying things you don't mean just because you don't want to lose your job. You should be with that young girl instead of an old woman like me. Even as I tried to pull away, Steve clung to me, crying loudly. As I wondered what to do, a patrolling police officer approached us, asking what was happening. I explained the situation, and they detained Steve. Why is this happening? Steve was sprawled on the ground, seemingly crying. It's all your own doing. Goodbye. I left him in the care of the police, bid farewell to Steve, and walked away. Later, through my lawyer, I pursued damages, including slavery under cheating from Steve. With all the evidence of infidelity in place, he reluctantly agreed to pay the compensation. When I told my parents about the divorce and its reasons, they were furious. They never liked Steve much, especially since he had avoided them. My father confronted their company about the lack of employee discipline. The executives, faced with my father's fury, pleaded for him to calm down, promising strict actions against Steve and Megan. Steve was demoted and transferred to a regional office, effectively removed from the corporate fast track. Megan was transferred as well, and their affair became a scandal within the company, leading to their eventual resignation due to the hostile work environment. Rumors say that after resigning, their financial situation was dire. Megan started working nights to support him. But Steve, unable to handle his fall from grace, became unemployed. Eventually, Megan, tired of their constant quarreling, left Steve, who then spiraled into mistrust and isolation, now living on social welfare and remaining indoors. While I felt some pity for how far he had fallen, it was all a result of his own actions, having taken his wife for granted and indulged in his whims. However, I recognize my own faults too. By always yielding to Steve's demands and enduring, I allowed his arrogant behavior to escalate. I am now working as an office worker in my father's company, where I met a single manager with whom I share a respectful and communicative relationship. We plan to marry soon, applying the lessons from my failed marriage with Steve. Seeing my new partner enjoy my cooking every day, I feel confident that this time, I will find true happiness with a trustworthy partner. You too smell poor. The stench of poverty is wafting over here. Gross, it's going to soak into my expensive clothes. Poor people making under $50,000 a year need to disappear. When Matt and Sherry ran into me by chance, they looked at me with disdain. They even pitted Paul, who was next to me, as a low-wage worker with dirty hands. 15 years ago, Matt suddenly left me and remarried. His new partner was a doctor's daughter. What's so great about a doctor's daughter? Amid their laughter, Paul straightened his back and spoke up. Are you mistaken? $50,000 is my monthly income. What? For a moment, both of them furrowed their brows in confusion. But then they burst out laughing. Yeah, right, stop lying like a little kid. Amazing, do you get your salary in $10,000 bills from a children's bank? I had always been scared of Matt. I couldn't stand up to him. But now, after 15 years, the tables have turned and it's time to show him. I am Angela Norman, a housewife in my 40s. I've been busy lately but finally got a haircut and a thorough head spa, which refreshed me. Touching my neatly trimmed hair sometimes makes my chest feel tight, because it reminds me of the past days that feel crushing. Please, just listen to a bit of my old story. I first got married almost 15 years ago when I was 27. Unfortunately, it wasn't a sweet honeymoon from the start. Right after the wedding, Matt quit his job and became a house husband. He felt undervalued at work and was stressed. It was always tough, but he seemed to have endured it by keeping up appearances. We started at the same company, but I regret not realizing his struggles. I was a full-time employee, so it was no problem. So, I vowed to support him. However, we're short on living expenses. As a house husband, Matt always seemed grumpy. He complained about the lack of living expenses every month. Are we short again? It's only mid-month. What can I do when the money you give me is so little? But I was able to live alone on half this budget. Suddenly, Matt glared at me. Are you saying it's my fault? It's impossible to suddenly get used to housework like a woman. I clean and cook for you, so why am I being complained at? Matt threw a tantrum like a child, stamping his feet and ranting quickly. Eventually, I stopped giving living expenses to Matt, and he managed my salary instead. I would get a monthly allowance of $200, but even that soon stopped. The budget is tight this month, too. I can't give you any allowance. Then, can you at least give me some money for the department's drinking party? A drinking party? You're too incompetent and earn too little to go to such things. Every time Matt shouted, I became afraid to speak. He wasn't always like this. He was a kind and cheerful man. I think he was beloved by both men and women at the company. His current attitude must be because he's tired. I thought to myself, just be kind to him for now, but that for now went on for 3 months. 6 months. I couldn't see the end of just for now. Here's your lunch sandwiches. I woke up early again today even though I'm still sleepy, just for you. He used to pack sandwiches with ham or tuna, but recently it's just cheese. But today's sandwiches are plain. I wonder if there's even anything in it. This month's salary was $2,700. Isn't that too little overtime? You understand we can't live properly with 2 adults on this, right? You should be grateful you can even eat a tuna sandwich with your incompetence. Yeah. Make sure your take-home next month is over $3,000. Okay. I want to do better, but somehow I can't muster the energy. As I nibbled on my breakfast toast, a sigh escaped me. Right after, Matt sighed even louder than me. Being a section manager isn't all that, huh? It's probably just because they have to give women positions too. Just picked you as section manager for the heck of it. If being a section manager meant better pay, then maybe, but look at this. A female section manager is just for show, the salary tells it all. I'm sorry. If I had been a section manager, I could have contributed more to the company. Maybe Matt decided to resign because I got a position before him, hurting his pride. If that's the case, his breakdown is my fault. I can't blame Matt. I have to obey him. After breakfast, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when I got a shock. In the mirror, there was an ugly old woman. Dark circles under her eyes, deep laugh lines, and her hair was a frizzy mix of gray. I have to do better. I wet my parched hands with cold water and tied my hair back. Once I fixed my hair, I transformed from an old woman to a dignified career woman. One day, I was out for work and headed straight home. It was earlier than usual. The area was still bright, with mothers with young children and students around. The station was nearby, but I started walking in the opposite direction. For some reason, the side towards the station felt gloomily dark. I didn't want to board the train that would take me to the home where Matt was waiting. Though it was nearly spring, the air was still a bit cold, and the wind stung my cheeks. When I touched my cheek, it felt rough and dry, probably peeling. Oh, a trendy cafe. I'd love a warm cafe au lait. But maybe I need a moisturizer more. I muttered to myself as I passed by the cafe when a man fast walked to me. Hello. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, a refreshing sight. It seemed like he was smiling at me. But there was no way he was talking to me, so I looked down. However, the man peered into my face. Are you interested in being a hair model? He was definitely looking into my eyes when he asked. I don't remember what he said next or how I responded. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a chair in a clean, stylish space, getting my hair cut by a hairstylist named Paul. How does it look? About an hour later, the mirror reflected a younger version of myself. My hair, once frizzy, now had a glossy shine. There were no waves or frizz, and my fingers slid through it smoothly. It's like I'm a different person. You look very beautiful. I knew it was just a compliment, but I couldn't help but smile. I was a bit skeptical about being a free haircut model, thinking it might be a scam. But Paul truly worked magic on me. The sweet scent of shampoo wafted from my hair. Paul gently stroked my hair, and somehow, the tension in my shoulders and the rest of my body melted away. I used to think it didn't matter if my hair was frizzy or gray as long as it was tied back. But it feels good to be beautiful. If you'd like, please let me cut your hair again. Paul treated my hair with the care of a glass artisan. It had been a while since I felt cherished by someone. Just an hour ago, my legs felt heavy, but now they felt light. It was getting dark, and the station was lit up. I boarded the train with my back straight and went home. How's your day? What happened to your hair? As soon as he saw me, Matt's eyes widened. I answered with a shy smile. You know, I was asked to be a haircut model, so I got it cut. Oh, and it was free. Really free. Amazing, right? My overgrown hair is now a short bob. I didn't expect him to say it suited me. I hoped he'd say something like "you look refreshed," or "lucky it was free," and laugh. But Matt's face twisted in an instant. What? Free? That's a lie, right? You're a low earner and incompetent. And you just went off and spent money on your own, right? You leave me to do the housework while you go out and have fun? I was taken aback by his unexpected response and stumbled over my words. No, it really was free. Look, I don't have any money in my wallet. There's no way I could go to a salon. Are you indirectly asking for pocket money? You have a terrible personality. What? That wasn't my intention at all. When was the last time I had a normal conversation with Matt? Tonight's dinner was still in plastic containers from the supermarket. If I said, "This is tasty," he would likely snap. So you think store-bought food is better than anything I could make? If I tried to fold the mountain of laundry on the sofa, he'd surely get upset, thinking it was a dig at him. So, I always just dug out whatever clothes I needed from the pile. I noticed a few wrinkles, but if I ironed them, Matt would explode. I had always been careful not to upset Matt, who was struggling with his mental health. It was pointless to insist that the haircut model was free, or that I was happy my hair looked nice. I'm sorry. Recently, our conversations had devolved into Matt getting angry and me apologizing. That was all. Being with Matt was exhausting. However, the option to distance myself from him had never crossed my mind. I didn't want to cause unnecessary worry to people from our former workplace. So I told them Matt left his job to advance his career. That's why he still keeps in touch with former colleagues. If they found out I had abandoned him while he was unwell, I would probably feel very uncomfortable. Then I thought, I only thought about myself. Wanting to distance myself from Matt or worried about my status at work. I didn't even try to support Matt, who was suffering. I hated this cold-hearted side of myself. I didn't want to face Matt either. So, I began to live each day with an empty heart. Without any conflicts, thinking I was living peacefully. But the peaceful everyday life suddenly collapsed. I've decided to get married. When I returned from work, Matt suddenly announced this. Married? I was confused. We were already married. Matt began to tremble and then burst into laughter. I stood frozen in the entrance, still not understanding. Then, a woman I didn't recognize appeared from the living room door down the hallway. Matt casually draped his arm around her shoulder. I'm going to marry Sherry. The woman named Sherry nestled her cheek against Matt's chest and flashed me a triumphant smile. Sorry, ma'am. I'm taking your Matt. Taking him. But that's... I looked so confused and ridiculous that they couldn't stop laughing. Just like Matt said, you really are a dirty old woman, ma'am. No wonder he wanted to cheat. But don't worry, we know it's not the wife who let him cheat but Matt who is at fault. Rest assured, we'll generously provide compensation. You're just a section manager but can't earn more than $50,000, such a useless woman. You want money, right? $10,000? $20,000? You can name any amount you like. My father is a doctor. We have money, so don't worry. And just like that, my marriage with Matt ended unceremoniously. I remember my parents, in their anger, demanded $50,000 in compensation. But we only received $10,000. It was frustrating, but dealing with Matt was too painful, so I reluctantly accepted it. That's the end of my sad story. 15 years after that divorce, I still occasionally think of Matt. Let's forget the past. I smoothed my freshly cut hair with both hands, trying to calm my troubled heart. The next day, I went to a suburban shopping mall with my husband. Is that you, Angela? A familiar, unforgettable voice called from behind me. Maybe it was just a hallucination because I had been reminiscing about the unpleasant past just the day before. It is Angela. A man suddenly appeared in front of me. Could this be a hallucination too? I blinked several times to check, but it was definitely Matt. Sherry, his affair partner from that time, was also with him. Wow, nostalgic, it's Angela. This girl, my ex-wife. The stain on my life. Matt was as exuberant as if he had reunited with an old friend. Feeling a pang in my heart, I clung to my husband's arm. Huh? No way, a man? What, Angela, you remarried? Ah, congratulations on your remarriage. Matt and Sherry smirked unpleasantly. In contrast, my current husband, Paul, and I remained serious. Sherry looked Paul up and down from head to toe with a pitying expression. Oh dear, your husband's hands are rough. Oh, and so are yours, ma'am. Poor thing, you must be struggling. Matt's gaze fell on our hands. Wow, it's true. Those are definitely the hands of poor people who've struggled. So filthy. You two really stink of poverty. The stench of poverty is drifting this way. Ugh, it's going to soak into my expensive clothes. People making under $50,000 a year should just disappear. He approached us suddenly and started insulting us unilaterally. Matt exaggeratedly pinched his nose and waved his hands in front of his face. I don't know what poverty is supposed to smell like. But Sherry's strong perfume was far more unpleasant. I lightly held my nose, which felt like it could bend. Paul looked puzzled and asked, "An income of $50,000? What are you talking about?" "That's Angela's salary." Wow, Sherry, you still remember Angela's salary. Well, I have a good memory. Poor lady, working so hard just to make $50,000, right? I suppose your husband is also a low-wage worker being exploited. I remember, too. Sherry is a doctor's daughter. I wonder how great being a doctor's daughter is supposed to be. Amid Matt and Sherry's laughter, Paul straightened up and spoke. Are you perhaps mistaken? $50,000 is the monthly income. What? For a moment, both furrowed their brows in confusion. But then laughter erupted from both of them. Nice lie. Stop with the childish lies, please. Wow, amazing. Do you get your salary in $10,000 bills from a children's bank? The two clutched their stomachs as if in pain from laughing. Matt and Sherry seemed more childish than actual children, offensively so in their lack of intellect. I had always been scared of Matt. I couldn't stand up to him. I still dream of him sometimes, and when I remember those moments, it feels like my chest is being crushed. But the Matt who appeared before me after 15 years was just a foolish bully, nothing to fear. What was I ever afraid of in Matt? It felt like a lump that had been stuck in my throat for a long time suddenly fell away. My voice flowed naturally. It's not a lie. My husband and I run a beauty salon. Nice lie. Beauty salons in fashionable areas have no entry for ugly old ladies. Oddly, Matt's taunts drifted past me like a light breeze. That over there is one of our beauty salons. I pointed at a beauty salon inside the shopping mall. Shall we drop by? I took Paul's arm and started walking. Matt and Sherry giggled as they followed behind us, probably expecting me to stop any minute and make up a ridiculous excuse. I walked confidently ahead of them and without hesitation, opened the door to the salon. Welcome. A female hairstylist greeted us pleasantly. Matt puffed up his cheeks, trying to hold back his laughter, and joked. It's a visit from the owners. Huh? Yes. Are you friends of the owner and the vice president? We're always grateful for their support. Huh? Caught off guard by the serious response, Matt and Sherry were stunned. Paul smiled warmly at them. Do you understand now that it wasn't a lie? This is one of the beauty salons we manage. Matt muttered with a frozen expression. It's a lie. It's not a lie. Looking desperate for me to tell him it was a lie, Matt looked at me for help. But I couldn't give him the answer he wanted because we truly are the owners of the salon. I still remember the day Matt left me. I thought I was supporting you through your struggles. But you cheated with wealthy Sherry and easily discarded me, which hurt a lot. Somehow, thinking about that day no longer made it hard to breathe. I felt as if I was finally free from Matt's spell. After Matt and I split up, I visited the beauty salon where I had been a hair model. When I felt like I was worthless to this world, I remembered how they treated my damaged hair as if it were precious. Could it be that this hairstylist is him? Did you marry him? That's right. I was drowning in sadness. But getting my hair dyed a bright color somehow lifted my spirits. Paul saved me when I wanted to disappear. At the time, Paul, still an apprentice, dreamed of owning his own shop. Inspired by him, I studied while working and obtained my cosmetology license. Around the same time, Paul realized his dream and opened his own shop. We managed the shop together as a couple and now run several stores. Paul is the president and I am the vice president. I continue to work as a hairstylist even though I'm an owner because I love it. Huh? That doesn't make sense. You, incompetent and low-paid, a hairstylist? An owner? That's a lie. Matt held his head in confusion. Matt used to mock me for being low-paid, but earning $50,000 isn't easy. It was scary to give up a stable job as a salaried worker. But I wanted to chase my dream with Paul. An old woman like you talking nonsense. Hairstyling is a job for young, cute girls. Indeed, I looked like a wreck and old before. But that's exactly why I aspired to be a hairstylist, to make people beautiful. Caught off guard, Matt examined me from head to toe. Dressed simply but neatly, I smiled gently at Matt. My face may have matured with age. But I'm not the broken old woman Matt had to insult anymore. I can clearly see that I shine brighter in my 40s than I did in my 20s under Matt's control. I'm living a fulfilling life, I conveyed, radiating happiness. As if a halo had appeared behind me, Matt squinted against the brightness and stepped back. A mere hairstylist acting so high and mighty. As Matt fell silent, Sherry sneered. A hairstylist who makes people beautiful? Hair alone doesn't change a person. Stuck in the past, I had been keeping tabs on Sherry's clinic. Her parents used to run a general practice, which at some point turned into a fancy beauty clinic. Likely, Sherry had started interfering in its management. My clinic creates women's beauty. Can a hairstylist remove facial spots? Can they rejuvenate and remove sagging? It's embarrassing for mere hairstylists who only mess with hair to act so superior. I don't believe that people aren't beautiful because they have spots or sagging. When you get your hair done, you naturally find yourself smiling. Just having clean hair can boost your confidence and help you like yourself more. Everyone who smiles is beautiful. But what's the point of being a breathtaking beauty with a flawless face if you're always frowning, right? Sherry twisted her smooth, egg-like face in displeasure. I've heard quite a bit about your clinic, Sherry. People come to you wanting to become beautiful. But I hear there are many cases of burns and swelling on their faces. What? Stop making weird accusations. My clinic has good reviews. Online reviews can be easily manipulated. But word of mouth directly from person to person? That's something you can't control, can you? Being well connected in the beauty industry, I hear all kinds of rumors, good and bad. I don't even need to look them up, the stories about her clinic just come to me. They say when someone goes to you to remove a single spot, you push them to treat other spots, pores, and sagging that they didn't ask for, right? I'm just trying to make them as beautiful as possible. And you also forcefully push products they don't need for home care, right? I'm just recommending good products. Sherry raised her voice in irritation. The hard sell tactics in a confined private room must be terrifying for the patients. I heard that even when patients clearly suffer burns from the treatments, you tell them it'll heal over time without proper care. I don't know anything about that. I'm not a doctor. It's my father's clinic, so it's none of my business. Indeed, she's not a doctor. That's strange. I've heard stories about the clinic's daughter. A reputedly skilled and beautiful doctor, performing procedures. Sherry opened her mouth with a smug look. Patients would rather have a beautiful woman like me handle their treatment than an old doctor. It's a beauty clinic, after all. Looks are everything. And you pretend to be a doctor? That's an exaggeration. I don't use any knives, it's safe. Lasers and injections are easy enough for anyone to do. Her attitude towards upselling, mishandling procedures, and even impersonating a doctor is chilling. I thought rumors might be exaggerated, but I can't believe they're actually true. I took out my phone from my pocket and said calmly, I'm making a report. Pretending to be a doctor and performing medical procedures without a license is a crime. Sherry gritted her teeth in displeasure. The one to stop me was Matt. A report? To the police? Come on, don't do that. Sherry seems numb to the reality, but Matt is different. He seems aware that they are committing illegal acts. What will happen to our clinic if you report us? Don't be vindictive just because I dumped you. It's not about our past, Matt. It's because I've now confirmed that there is a real problem with the clinic. When Matt realized I was serious, he quickly changed his tune. To be honest, I've been fed up with Sherry's way of doing things. She's too selfish, using her status as a doctor's daughter. I'm breaking up with her, it has nothing to do with me anymore. Go ahead and report. Meeting Angela again made me realize how awful Sherry is. Angela, you're a hard worker, and unlike Sherry, who just leeches off her parents, there's no comparison. Angela, you're a great woman. I like you. Matt's blunt confession made my skin crawl. I almost blurted out EW. What? After all the support I gave you, you say that? What's so great about being a doctor's daughter? You're just living off your parents' money. And besides, your parents don't even make as much as Angela does now. A nasty argument started. I didn't want anything more to do with them, so I pulled on Paul's arm to leave. Angela, wait. I'm serious about you. Matt tried to follow, but Sherry tackled him to the ground. Don't mess with me. If you're going to dump me for her, pay back all the money I spent on you. Enough with the money. You're rich, just keep throwing your money around. Their scuffle turned into a wrestling match in the middle of the mall. Security arrived to separate them. But Sherry broke free from a big man's grasp and lunged at Matt again. Angela, help. It's not about the money. I like you. Sherry mounted Matt and he reached out to me. It wasn't a laughing matter. But seeing Matt's front tooth broken like a bad skit made me burst out laughing. Shut up, you leech. Sherry, her egg-like face now veined with anger, headbutt him. They really are an aggressive couple. Paul and I aren't into wrestling, so we just exchanged looks and chuckled. I used to be a wife who only followed Matt. But Sherry clearly communicates her opinions and fists directly to Matt. They seem quite well matched. Later, as I had declared, I reported Sherry's clinic. It caused a major uproar with many victims emerging. The clinic was immediately shut down, and Sherry tried to disappear with her parents. But they were promptly sued by a group of victims and caught. Sherry, especially, faced severe charges for medical practices without a license, adding assault and fraud to her crimes, leading to a prison sentence without suspension. She won't be able to maintain her proud beauty inside prison. Matt was also suspected of complicity but was acquitted. However, during the investigation, embezzlement was uncovered. It seems he had been secretly selling the clinic's expensive home care products on a flea market site. Sherry reportedly screamed, "Give him the death penalty." But Matt only got a suspended sentence because the stolen amount wasn't large. There are no more problems between me and you, Angela. Let's start over. Later, unbelievably, Matt appeared before me. I've definitely cut ties with Sherry, who committed a grave sin. Angela, you're the best. I like you. Sorry for making you wait so long. He tried to strike a princely pose, but it was just gross. I'm not waiting for you. You've also committed a major crime and are on probation. You're not in a position to speak ill of Sherry. Don't be so tough. I'll treat you right this time. I could only be amazed at Matt's delusional thinking. If, just hypothetically, I were to start over with Matt. At my words, a sparkle appeared in Matt's eyes. I would have to quit the business I run with Paul. Even if I start a new job now, I doubt I'd make even $50,000 a year, let alone $50,000 a month. Would that be okay? However, the sparkle in Matt's eyes clouded over instantly. See, it's not me you love. You just love money. 15 years ago, I was concerned that I had wounded his pride by advancing in my career before him. But in reality, Matt has no pride. He just wants to be taken care of by a woman, to live comfortably without effort. If you love money so much, it would be quicker to earn it yourself. Oh, maybe you can't, which is why you leech off women. I remember I got promoted before you did. What? There's no way I'm inferior to you. You only got the section chief position because you're a woman, it's a special quota. I'm obviously better. It seems Matt did have a shred of pride after all. Although I had been submissive before, in his heart, he must have looked down on me as a woman. Who would bother with an old woman like you? After receiving this humiliation from me, whom he deemed inferior, he threw out these last words and disappeared. This should mean he won't come back to me anymore. Sometime later, I heard through the grapevine that Matt had been arrested by the police. He had been following young women around, and at one point even hugged one from behind. Maybe being scorned by an older woman like me made him want to prove he could attract younger women. Although he had a tendency towards emotional abuse, he wasn't the type to commit a crime before. Perhaps Sherry's ease with breaking the law had lowered his barriers to committing crimes. Environment is important, I suppose. Since it's been 15 years since we severed ties, it's entirely someone else's problem now. Thinking hypothetically about separating from Paul, I realized I have no intention of leaving him. I am thoroughly satisfied with my life with Paul. It might sound exaggerated, but I am the protagonist of my life. I don't want to return to the days when I was controlled by Matt, losing my emotions and merely surviving. I refuse to be a side character in someone else's story. Today, I went to see your shop. Is that so? You should have called me. You seemed busy. More importantly, the customers coming out of the shop were all smiles, constantly touching their silky hair. I suddenly remembered the first time Paul cut my hair. I was truly happy then. Holding on to that joy, I always pick up my scissors. I'm glad I became a hairstylist. What happened to you? Paul looked surprised but showed a smile. I look forward to seeing many more smiles tomorrow. Useless poor people who don't have money should get divorced. Saying that, David left the divorce papers and walked out. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared at the divorce papers in shock. I had been suspicious for a while, but still, to think he was really cheating on me. Moreover, he got his mistress pregnant. So he decides to ditch me because I am useless and unable to earn while hospitalized? Mom? Startled by the voice of my precious son, I looked up to see Ryan and my father standing there. My father frowned as he saw what I was holding. What are you going to do? It's already decided. I asked to be discharged from the hospital a bit early, pushing myself a bit, and headed to the bank where David was. My father, who drove me there, told me to hang in there, and dropped me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I entered the bank, I caught David's eye. He frowned when he noticed me. By chance, there were no other customers in front of him. I walked straight up to David. I'm closing all the accounts of our employees. What? Let's see if I can make him understand whose daughter he has angered. As David turned pale, I smirked. I am Ashley White, a 32-year-old company executive. I live with my 7-year-old son named Ryan, and my husband named David. David and I met at a mixer during our university days, hosted by a mutual friend. At the time, we weren't particularly interested in each other, and just exchanged contact information. Hey, weren't you at the mixer? Ashley, was it? Oh, David? The following year, by chance, I used the bank where he worked and we met again. This led us to start communicating frequently, and eventually, we began dating. We got married after I became pregnant with Ryan. David is known for his diligent and meticulous work, which has always made him the envy of our friends. I also felt fortunate to be married to someone like him. Mom, why has this happened? Just wait a bit. I don't know all the details yet, so I'll find out. Okay. Ryan, perhaps taking after David, is studious and curious. He asks what's this and why ye daily, keeping me on my toes with my own studies. Ryan admires someone unexpectedly, not David, but my father. My mother passed away from an illness, and my father, despite being busy with work, raised me single-handedly. Sorry, I still don't really like your father. Well, can't help it, but don't say that to him. He's quite sensitive about it. No way I'd say that. My father is a kind man, but he looks tough and somewhat intimidating. David is uncomfortable around my father because of his appearance. My father is aware of this and tries not to interfere too much. Thanks to that, we had a peaceful life at first. However, that changed as soon as we got married. Hey, where did you put my smartphone? Don't talk like that. Isn't it just on the charger? David, grumpy first thing in the morning, was actually charging his phone before he went to sleep. No apologies or thanks, but he just grimaced, which irritated me even more. David changed drastically after we got married. He keeps saying, I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, you can live a comfortable life. However, he doesn't contribute financially at home. He spends his salary on himself, yet he acts as if he's supporting our household. In reality, I'm the one supporting our family finances, paying for utilities and groceries. Yet, if I take Ryan out for a meal on weekends or buy new clothes, he immediately complains. It seems he can't stand us enjoying any luxuries, no matter how minor. Hey! What's this new outfit? It's Ryan's. His old clothes were getting too small. Don't splurge with my money. I paid for it with my salary. I don't even have your passbook. On the other hand, my father is willing to spare no expense for us. This condo is too small, isn't it? So, I bought the one David wanted to live in. If you live there, I can be nearby without living together. He smiled as he purchased the condo and gifted us the top floor. And he also lived in the same building, ensuring we could call on him if needed. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Sure, but even though it's the same building, don't stay too late. Come back before it gets dark. Okay. It's natural that Ryan feels closer to his grandfather than to his father, David. Whenever he has time, Ryan goes to see my father. Where's Ryan? With Dad. Interestingly, David never complains to my father. And he tries not to complain about Ryan either, fearing he might tell on him. David only shows his assertiveness towards me. I keep quiet so as not to bother my father. If it's just complaints, I can ignore them. That was my light-hearted attitude. Thus, David has not participated in parenting at all. I got called by Hannah, so I'm heading out. What? Again? Taking time away from parenting is David's childhood friend, Hannah Baker. I dislike her, or rather, I hate her. David and I are like siblings. So, please don't misunderstand. Every time she sees me, she says things like that. On top of that, she tries to assert dominance by claiming she knows David better than I do with remarks like, the old David would have. It's really bothersome. And what makes it even more complicated is that David's mother adores her too. Why did David choose such a woman instead of marrying Hannah? He should have married Hannah. Whenever I'm called over to my in-laws, my mother-in-law deliberately says things like that loud enough for me to hear. Each time, my father-in-law scolds her, but she doesn't seem to care. Hannah claims to be a natural at being doted on. I'm just naturally affectionate with David. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, Ashley. It would be one thing if she were younger, but she's 28, old enough to know better. The only reason they never got together was because of my father-in-law. I wouldn't want to call that woman my daughter-in-law, even out of duty. If it really comes to it, I'd divorce you. Hannah is not exactly a good person. She's notorious for playing around with men and lives a freeloader lifestyle, relying on David to buy her anything she wants. My father-in-law despised her and was vehemently opposed to their relationship. I could never understand why my mother-in-law dotes on Hannah so much. I'm sorry you have to deal with my wife. You shouldn't be the one apologizing. David is also to blame. He doesn't defend his wife when she's insulted, and instead, he's close with that woman. True to my father-in-law's words. No matter what my mother-in-law says about me, David never defends me. Sometimes, he even laughs. Grandma, why do you say such things? If Mom hadn't met Dad, I wouldn't have been born. Am I an unwanted child to you? No, that's not true. Ryan always stands up for me. Although he doesn't understand exactly how children are made. He knows that it takes both parents to have a child. My mother-in-law dotes on him too, so she refrains from saying such things in front of him. It seems that David and his mother are alike in that respect. Which makes me realize that parents and children often resemble each other. I have a plan to drink with Hannah tonight, so I'll be late. Oh, I see. Gradually, I started to wonder if we really needed David in our lives. And I began preparing for a divorce. Ryan seemed to sense something was up. If there's anything I can help with, just tell me, he said, showing his concern for me. Just then, I was summoned by my mother-in-law. I didn't want to go, but she kept calling me repeatedly, to the point it would affect my work if I didn't show up. My husband isn't here right now to carry heavy things. So, can you buy some flour? Apparently, my father-in-law was on a business trip. I thought to myself that she could just order it online. But I knew better than to say that out loud because it would only lead to more noise. After carrying heavy items after work, I was exhausted. As I absent-mindedly headed to the condo, my body was thrown by a car. It seems a car that ran a red light hit me. The car that hit you fled the scene, and we are currently investigating. I was informed in the hospital bed. For now, I left Ryan in the care of my father and decided to stay in the hospital for a while. I broke my arm, so I couldn't do much work. My father scolded me, saying, "Worry about your own health first." Ryan, my father, and my father-in-law, who rushed back upon hearing the news, visited me frequently, but David and my mother-in-law never came. Well, that was within my expectations. I'm coming in. What? So, I was surprised when David came into the hospital room. Sign this. David placed a divorce paper in front of me, already signed by him. With that arm, you won't be able to work. Now that you can't earn money, you're useless to me. What are you talking about? Besides, Hannah is pregnant with my child. My mind went blank. Hannah was pregnant with David's child. I'm marrying Hannah. So, just sign this quickly. Saying that, David quickly turned his back on me, as if he had no more use for me. Useless poor people who don't have money should get divorced. Saying that, David left the divorce papers and walked out. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared at the divorce papers in shock. I had been suspicious for a while, but still, to think he was really cheating on me. Moreover, he got his mistress pregnant. So he decides to ditch me because I am useless and unable to earn while hospitalized? Mom? Startled by the voice of my precious son, I looked up to see Ryan and my father standing there. My father frowned as he saw what I was holding. What are you going to do? It's already decided, I answered, looking straight at my father, who nodded in agreement. Now, let's see about getting some payback. I asked to be discharged from the hospital a bit early, pushing myself a bit, and headed to the bank where David was. My father, who drove me there, told me to hang in there, and dropped me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I entered the bank, I caught David's eye. He frowned when he noticed me. By chance, there were no other customers in front of him. I walked straight up to David. I'm closing all the accounts of our employees. What? David's expression said, what are you talking about? I noticed a few people looking annoyed as I stood at the counter without taking a number. Oh, sorry. Perhaps you don't understand without the company name. What are you? Recently, I succeeded my father as the president. The company name is Smith Corporation. What? Smith Corporation is an IT company that my father founded, which now employs 1,900 people. It has grown rapidly in one generation, and is quite well known in this area and in the industry. That's why David was so surprised. That's a lie, right? You just want to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check? Upon hearing my words, David immediately started verifying something. While David was checking, I looked around. Since I had mentioned the company name, those around us were watching our situation. Oh no. No way? It seems he confirmed it, looking up at me cautiously. You're really from that Smith Corporation? Now I'll show him whose daughter he is angered. While David turned pale, I smirked. So, please cancel the accounts quickly. Wait, you can't just do that suddenly. If you cancel all these accounts at once. By the way, my father is also very angry about this. Just pack your things and leave the condo. What? Why do I have to be kicked out? It seems he has forgotten that the condo was purchased by my father and that it's in his name. Well, otherwise, he wouldn't have been living there with Hannah while I was hospitalized. Remember? That condo was bought by my father, the previous president. You haven't contributed a single penny, and on top of that, you haven't been paying any living expenses, have you? You're just supporting your childhood friend and mistress, Hannah. In fact, you've been living on my salary alone. Who do you think has been earning the money we live on? That's. And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the condo to you and your mistress? How much more are you going to disrespect me? I purposely raised my voice so those around could hear. This, of course, made David panic. After all, he has a reputation for being serious. And here he is, not spending a dime at home but cheating with a childhood friend. The glances around us turned colder. Is that true? The person who addressed me was the branch manager of the bank. He had been there for a while and heard our conversation. It seems I need to talk to you in detail. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience caused by our bank employee. Then, the branch manager apologized deeply. I was led to the back where David, the branch manager, and I had a discussion. There, I explained the situation in detail to the branch manager. I deeply apologize for the inconvenience we've caused. The branch manager sighed heavily and apologized again. And next to him, David, looking displeased, was made to apologize by the manager. I can understand why you wouldn't want to entrust your important money to a bank that employs such a person. If you decide to cancel, we will make the arrangements. I'm no longer his wife. If you agree to one condition, I'll reconsider the cancellation. Both looked up hopefully at my words. It was a good offer for the manager, but the worst possible condition for David. If you fire David White, I will continue to do business with this bank. What? That's natural. I was already planning to fire him. It seemed that the manager had already intended to do so. David initially looked confused, but his face gradually turned red. Just as he was about to say something. Excuse me, but a person claiming to be Ms. Smith's father has arrived. Another bank employee came to us. I had asked the manager to let him in, and David, frustrated, shut his mouth. What? Why do I have to deal with this too? Mom? David muttered. Sorry, I kept you waiting. My father entered, firmly holding my mother-in-law's arm. Seeing me, she glared at me sharply. This is your doing. What are you planning? Even if I'm your mother-in-law, I'll never forgive you for treating me like this. Silence. When my mother-in-law started shouting, my father, with an even scarier look on his face, sharply rebuked her. Not just my mother-in-law, but even David let out a short cry and fell silent. I know you've been harassing my daughter. You keep calling her for errands and making her buy and carry heavy things. Despite that, instead of thanking her, you say that woman Hannah, who's a mistress, is better in a way that my daughter can hear. And David, instead of defending her, you just laugh. And the child has to stand up for her. My father's angry voice resonated well through the bank. David tried to intervene, but he was silenced by my father's glare. Also, I know that Hannah Baker was the one who ran over Ashley. That woman has already been arrested by the police. No, can't be. Hannah wouldn't do such a thing. What are you surprised about? You're the main culprit. My father scolded her further. Meanwhile, David, not knowing it before, was frozen in shock. You two are the worst kind of a parent and child. Ashley, let's go. Yes. Encouraged by my father, I headed outside. The manager followed us, apologizing repeatedly, thinking that I might continue the contract with this manager. I heard David and my mother-in-law arguing loudly behind us. It seemed they were blaming each other. Their voices were heard outside, and the customers and other bank employees who were present whispered, so what we heard was true. Just as planned. Yes. They reacted just as I expected, thankfully. We walked out of the bank laughing, having carried out our plan as expected. As a result, David was successfully fired, thanks to the police conducting a thorough investigation. Hannah received a prison sentence. As for my mother-in-law, it was discovered that she conspired with Hannah to arrange the hit-and-run to get rid of me, and called me out, leading to her being taken by the police and divorced by her husband. Hi, Mom. Hi, Grandpa. Thank you for taking care of Ryan, Mr. White. No problem. It looks like you've settled everything well. After confronting David and my mother-in-law at the bank, I went to pick up Ryan, who I had left in the care of my father-in-law. He had also helped a lot this time, having found evidence that my mother-in-law had incited Hannah to devise a plan to eliminate me, and submitting a note detailing this plan to the police. When I thanked him for all of this, he smiled and said, "You did well." From then on, I became busier than ever. Already busy as a future president and an executive, I now had even greater responsibilities since I had become the president. Meanwhile, my father started a new company. I've been thinking of starting a new company for a while. Saying this, he eagerly pushed the presidency onto me, to show David a thing or two. Therefore, both my father and I became busier, so my father-in-law took care of Ryan. It turns out that my father-in-law's business trip was forced due to my mother-in-law's affair with the boss. He retired early and moved into a vacant room in our condo. I'm studying for remote work now. I'm planning to entrust him with work someday, and have sent someone knowledgeable to teach him. He seems very capable, so I definitely want him to showcase his skills at the new company. It seems that our fathers have hit it off after this incident, often visiting each other's rooms to drink and talk about various things. On the other hand, David, who was driven out, apparently went back to his empty parents' home. Unable to find re-employment at any bank and with rumors spread everywhere by my father and me, he couldn't get hired anywhere and had to pay me alimony with loans. Now, he spends his days working tirelessly at part-time jobs. And although he begged us for help, our family unanimously ignored him. He was once rumored to be a promising candidate for branch manager, but he has fallen far from grace. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. This incident made Ryan respect his grandfather even more. He seems to view him as a hero who saved him from the unpleasantness caused by David and my mother-in-law. If that's the case, will you take over Grandpa's place someday? Yes. Ryan's commitment to follow in his footsteps made my father very pleased. Determined not to be outdone by such a doting father, I decided to work even harder. After a while, both my company and my father's company began to stabilize. "Oh, Mom, welcome back. You must be tired, Ashley." Still exhausted when I returned home, my father-in-law had prepared dinner. "I helped out today too." "Did you? That's great, Ryan. I'm looking forward to dinner." I praised Ryan, who smiled back at me. Later, my father also returned home, and the four of us gathered around the dinner table to eat and chat. In stark contrast to us, David's family had fallen apart. David, overwhelmed by debt, eventually turned to loan sharks. And rumors say he was last seen being put on a boat. David's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and my mother-in-law, having lost her place to return, was seen living under a bridge by an acquaintance. By the way, I received an apology letter from Hannah's parents. They're good people, so I hope you'll read it. If you say so. According to the letter from Hannah's parents, she had given birth in prison. They took in the child to ensure that after her release, Hannah would not depend on them, moving far away instead. The letter also contained a deep apology to me. Hannah's parents seem like very good people. I truly hope the child grows up resembling the grandparents rather than the parents. Thus, Hannah now also has no place to return. I hope she contemplates her actions alone in her solitude. Years later, we no longer suffer from David's presence, almost forgetting he was ever a father. It seems Ryan vaguely remembers, but he dismisses any relation as irrelevant. We, too, have entirely forgotten their existence. I've decided to take over Grandpa's company after all. If that's what you've decided, I won't oppose it. Ryan chose to succeed in my father's company, a toy company. Starting as an ordinary employee, Ryan, who is valued for his continuous stream of ideas, might take over the company sooner than expected. Maybe it's time I handed over the company to Ryan. My father laughed at the thought. He plans to retire to the countryside once he entrusts the company to Ryan. I have also found a successor, vigorously training him. Once he is sufficiently experienced, I might consider retiring early to start a new path. With these thoughts, I continue to dedicate myself to my duties as president today. I'm sorry, I snagged such a wonderful fiancé. Are you upset that I'm happy? Jealous? Why do those who can only look down on others end up with such ugly faces? The once cute face of my sister now seemed distorted before me. My sister and her husband looked down on not only me but my husband as well. My anger reached its peak, and I exceeded my limits of tolerance. My name is Megan. I am 27 years old, working at a printing company. I work in printing, but I'm not operating the large machines. My department handles design. We create flyers and catalogs for various industries based on customer requests. Although the number of prints has decreased with digitalization, designing is still very busy and fulfilling. Thankfully, I have more customers requesting my services. When you designed the flyer for the last Christmas event, it was a big hit. Everyone said it was cute. Receiving such comments truly makes me happy. My job is my passion. Just when I thought I might end up single for life because I was so devoted to my job, my father was hospitalized for appendicitis. When I went to visit him, a young doctor named Howard, who is now my boyfriend and recently became my fiancé, approached me saying, Hello. Are you here to visit someone today? You never know where life might lead you. Despite saying I was devoted to my job, I started buying bridal magazines as soon as marriage came up. I might be getting a bit carried away, flipping through the magazine while having coffee in the living room. That's when it happened. A hand suddenly snatched the magazine away from me. Hey! What's this? A bridal magazine? Why are you looking at something like this? It's none of your business, Sarah. It was my sister named Sarah, 2 years younger than me, that snatched the magazine away from me. You getting married, huh? Look in the mirror before you say that. You should know your place. You don't even have a boyfriend, right? Unlike you, I have one anytime. You know, my current boyfriend is. No one asked, but my sister started bragging about her boyfriend. She has always been like this. Unlike me, who has an ordinary face, my sister has always been cute and very popular. Everyone around her spoiled her, except for our parents and me. As a result, my sister grew up thinking she is the center of the world. She became arrogant and eventually started looking down on me, her older sister. Stay away from me. I don't want your face to rub off on me. Even if you study hard with that brain, you won't get good grades. Just stop wasting your effort, huh? Again, I got asked out. It's tough being so popular. Poor sister who never gets any attention, and so on, she kept saying. Even though our parents scolded her harshly, it was too late. My sister's personality did not change, and the verbal abuse towards me did not stop. As an adult, she still continued to look down on me. Tired of my sister's bragging about her boyfriend, I sighed and finally said, I do have a boyfriend, and actually, we're engaged. I'm getting married soon, that's why I'm looking at the magazine. At that moment, my sister stopped in her tracks. She stared at me intently and then smirked with a snide smile. Huh, someone actually likes you? Wonder what he saw in you. He likes my cheerful and energetic personality. That sounds fake. You're probably just treated like a maid. I'm going to keep working, so being a perfect housewife is out of the question. He understands that. My sister reacted with exaggerated surprise. What? You're keeping your job even though you're getting married? Poor thing, marrying a poor man. I bristled at her words. She can't seem to be satisfied unless she looks down on me. Money is not an issue. He is a doctor, and his income is more than adequate. I just want to continue working because I enjoy it. When I snapped back, my sister suddenly fell silent. I sighed in relief and returned to my room. A doctor. I see. She muttered meaningfully without my knowledge. When it comes to marriage, the first thing to do is to introduce him to the parents. Howard came to my house for the introduction. I was relieved that my sister happened to be absent, as I had a bad feeling about it. However, the atmosphere changed instantly when my sister showed up. This guy is your fiancé? He's quite handsome. Sarah. Weren't you supposed to be out? Canceling that for my sister's fiancé's visit was a given. In the past, when we were students, my sister had stolen my boyfriend several times. As a working adult, I hadn't had a boyfriend, so it hadn't happened. But my sister kept getting new boyfriends one after another. The presence of my sister made me uneasy. But I hoped she had grown up and wouldn't do something like stealing my fiancé. However, she was overly familiar with my fiancé, who seemed to blush. My worst fears were confirmed. Let's pretend this marriage never happened. I've decided to break up with you and start dating Sarah. I never thought my sister would steal a boyfriend even after becoming an adult. I'm sorry I took your fiancé. But it can't be helped, right? I'm cuter and more attractive, and Howard was really into me. Oh, being cute is such a crime. My sister said this with arrogance and not a hint of apology, while Howard also laughed next to her. Really, I had no idea you had such a cute sister. If I knew, I wouldn't have gotten engaged to you. Lucky it was before the wedding. The moment I saw that twisted smile, any feelings I had for him disappeared completely. What remained was only disgust. I'm glad too. I wouldn't want to marry someone like you. A man who easily goes to another woman. I'll gladly give you to Sarah with a bow on top. She's just making excuses. Really. Till the end, not cute at all. I wasn't making excuses, but I seriously thought so. But it seemed the two of them, lost in their delusions, didn't get it. Interacting with you guys is just a waste of time. Goodbye. Making excuses, see ya. I say the same. It's a waste of time. I'll never meet you again, bye. Until the end, they looked down on me, and the two of them left. After that, my furious parents banned them from coming over, so I never met them again. I heard through the grapevine that they got married. I couldn't care less now. 3 years have passed since I parted ways with my sister and her husband. And I turned 30, still fully engaged in my work. During this time, a customer became fond of my work and started requesting me repeatedly. His name was Kevin Anderson. As Kevin and I talked through work, I somehow found myself invited to dinner. Then, he asked me out on a date. On one of our dates, he proposed a serious relationship. To be honest, I was very happy. Kevin was a very sincere man, and I didn't think he would be like my ex. But, it seemed that my sister had become quite a trauma for me. Maybe, but I couldn't help but worry a little. So, I told him the truth about my sister and my ex-fiancé. I even showed him a photo of my sister to gauge his reaction. However, looking at my sister's photo, his expression remained unchanged. He looked away from the photo indifferently and gave me a kind, gentle smile. It might be weird to say this, but, you know, I used to be quite popular. I've met many women, cuter and more beautiful than your sister. Even so, for some reason, none of them ever excited me. I thought maybe I'd end up single for life, but I was wrong. What do you mean? I believe I have a good eye for people because of my job. No matter how beautiful or well-dressed, it can't match inner beauty. I realized that after meeting you. What do you mean? I thought you were shining. Huh? When you talk about your work, you come alive and shine, and I find that beautiful. I thought it was wonderful. Even when we're not working, whether we're having dinner or on a date. You always seem to be enjoying yourself with a smile. I could tell you were genuinely enjoying our time together. You seem to enjoy life so much, it's almost dazzling. What? Hold on, this is so embarrassing. Kevin continued as I panicked. Megan, you are beautiful. More beautiful and charming than anyone else I've met. I really hope you will consider a relationship with marriage in mind with me. I truly. Stop. That's enough, it's too embarrassing. My face turned bright red as I stopped him, but Kevin's words didn't cease. Eventually, I agreed to the relationship, and his flattering words continued for a while. Oh, so embarrassing. A year later, Kevin and I got married, and we became husband and wife. Married life was going smoothly, and I felt we became even closer than before. We both did household chores when we could. My husband, having lived alone for a long time. Might be even better at domestic tasks than me. His cooking, when I was too tired to do anything else, was incredibly delicious. We often went out together on days off. One holiday, Kevin said he wanted to look at some furniture, so we went out. It was then that I had a nightmare-like encounter with the devil again. Hey! I thought I saw some plain woman, and it was you. As I was looking at the bedding section, I heard a voice from behind. I knew without looking. Even after not seeing her for 4 years, she was unforgettable. Sarah. There stood my sister, with my ex-fiancé Howard by her side. Her features seemed harsher than before. Perhaps with age or her personality coming to the fore. Howard, standing beside her, was grinning, though he seemed thinner. Fancy meeting you here. What are you doing? Nothing special. Just looking at furniture. This place has a lot of expensive imports, you know? It's not somewhere for someone like you. As usual, my sister's condescending attitude was exhausting. Howard nodded in agreement. Exactly. If people like you come here, it'll lower the store's class. They'll think we're poor too. Just go home. I was irritated by their words, but responding was a waste of time. I remained silent. However, my silence seemed to irritate them even more, and their voices grew louder. Oh no, this is awful. This high-end store is ruined. Why would such a poor person come here? You can't even afford anything. That's right, poor people should go home. Other customers and the staff began to look over, wondering what was going on. Frustrated, I reached for my husband's hand to leave, but he didn't move. It was then that my sister and her husband finally noticed him. Oh. Who are you? I'm Megan's husband. My sister's eyes widened. Huh? You married this plain Jane? Seriously? Brave of you. Did you need a maid or something? Hilarious. We both do the household chores. It's natural since we both work. Really? Both working? Poor thing, your wife has to work because you're so poor. Poor you. As for me, I'm a full-time housewife living a comfortable life. We eat out more than half the week. We have money, so we hire someone for the housework. Sorry for being on the winning side. My sister's taunting and irritating way of speaking stretched my patience thin. She smirked at me as she spoke. I'm sorry for taking your wonderful fiancé. Thanks to that, you're stuck in a poor life even though you're married. And with such a dull man. You two are perfectly plain together. Aren't you upset that I'm happy? Jealous? Marriage to a man who can't even support his wife, typical of you. Suffer for life, you losers. That was the last straw. I could tolerate comments about me, but not about my husband. Listen, enough is. Megan, it's okay. Just as I was about to yell, my husband stepped forward. Nice to meet you, I'm Kevin, your sister's husband. Your name is Lame too. Thank you for that. Since we're here, here's my business card. As Howard took the business card, my husband looked at my sister. You say quite harsh things about Megan. It's the truth. Ugly women can be called ugly. That's my law. There's no such law. And to me, you're far uglier. Excuse me. Shall we call it the ugliness of your nature? You seem confident in your appearance. But don't you realize that your distorted personality shows on the outside? His words were polite, yet remarkably cutting. My sister's face quickly turned bright red. Don't joke. What about me is ugly? Everything. Beautiful people don't envy their sisters and steal their fiancés. What? When have I ever been jealous of Megan? People strive to get close to and surpass those they admire. Isn't Megan such a person for you? No, that's not it. I was surprised, not only by my husband's words but even more by my sister's reaction. I had never thought about it that way because my sister always looked down on me. But seeing her flustered, I began to wonder. If you don't care about someone, if they really don't matter to you, you would just ignore them. You wouldn't think to steal whoever Megan might bring around. Because they are not the partner you chose for yourself. Stealing from someone else means there is envy. Which you couldn't get something on your own that someone else did. I'm telling you, I'm not jealous. By stealing, you want to feel superior to others, right? It means you lack confidence. Confident people don't need to do that. They can live proudly without such acts. No, that's not. My sister was desperately trying to counter, but her voice was losing its strength. Hey! This name is. As if breaking the brief silence that had fallen, Howard suddenly shouted. He looked pale as he alternated his gaze between the business card and my husband. Shaking my sister's shoulder. What now? This name. I thought it looked familiar, so I checked, and oh. What? Kevin Anderson? What about it? The name of the hospital where I work. Huh? The hospital? Oh, right, Anderson Medical Corporation, The chairman and chief physician, Dr. Anderson. Kevin is his son. Huh, what? What? It's a common surname, it could be someone else. I've seen him at the hospital a few times with the chairman, so it's definitely him. It was from a distance, so I didn't remember well, but I thought he looked familiar. If he's the son, he must be a doctor, right? What does that business card say? The company name, oh. Not all doctors' sons have to become doctors. Besides, this company. It's a very famous pharmaceutical company. I heard the grandfather was getting old and passed it on to his grandson. Indeed. I'm that grandson. As the flustered couple faced him, my husband smiled slightly. What the? Oh no. As my sister screamed almost like a wail, and Howard seemed about to collapse. My husband calmly informed them. I met Megan through my work, which I was doing until I took over my grandfather's duties. I had heard about her sister, but this is beyond what I imagined. That. Struggling for words, my sister turned to Howard. The work of helping people requires compassion. Yet, you not only lack compassion, but you belittle and mock others. Who would want to be saved by such a doctor? That's a misunderstanding. Howard tried to defend himself, his face pale, but my husband's eyes flashed as he said, "No excuses. I'll talk to my father about you. Await your fate." No way. As Howard slumped, defeated, my sister remained stunned. Turning our backs on them, we left the scene. I was sure we would never meet them again. I walked on without looking back, feeling this in my heart. What happened afterward? Though Howard was not fired, he faced a significant pay cut and was removed from his responsible positions. Apparently, his haughty attitude towards others had been consistent, even extending to his patients, leading to his inevitable downfall. He was essentially on pins and needles and eventually left, as if fleeing. Hospital communities spread the word, and he struggled to find new employment, leading to a difficult unemployed life. As for my sister, it turned out she had been reckless with money. And despite a high salary, they were living in dire straits. That's why Howard had lost weight. It wasn't just weight loss, he looked gaunt. After Howard's pay cut, my sister quickly gave up on him and divorced him. If Howard was no good, she would find another man. That seemed to be her thinking, but it didn't work out that way. My husband had mentioned, and I had noticed at the reunion, that my once cute younger sister's face had become harsh. Perhaps her true nature was showing through. Maybe that's why her popularity had waned. "No one will date me," she complained to our parents in tears. According to her, "I'm so cute, why won't anyone dote on me?" And even that woman snagged a good man. "I have to surpass her," she apparently said. That woman must be me. I guess the "I have to surpass her" is her country's law. My husband had said that my sister actually admired me, and maybe that was true. But that doesn't mean I can forgive her actions. In the end, without support from the home she had fled to, my sister was turned away as she got her just desserts and disappeared into the night. Her whereabouts are unknown. I'll probably never hear my sister's name again. Meanwhile, freed from the curse of my sister and her husband, I continued to live a peaceful life. A serene marriage, a passionate career, and fulfilling days. And soon, we will become a family of 3. Staring at the computer monitor, I gently stroked my growing belly.